Before we continue with the rest of chapter 52, just to take a few moments to explain a little bit the relationship of Torah, Shechina, and the world. Torah is, we know it, we usually refer to Torah as the guide how to live life, instructions to the world, the instructions to how to live as a Jew, the information of how to take this world and elevate it, etc. But the truth is, if you remember a while back, we spoke about a metaphor that I once heard from Rabbi Yael Khan of blessed memory. And he explains that there's two ways to see how the human body was formed by Hashem. One way to see it is that Hashem made the human body, and then he said, okay, you have a hand, I'll create the mitzvah of tefillin. You have a head, I'll put the mitzvah of, your eyes will see look at the Hanukkah candles, your mouth will say words of Torah, your ears will hear the shofar, etc. Meaning your feet will walk the shul. And he designed all the mitzvahs to serve and guide and encompass the body. Another way to see it is that Hashem had a Torah. And he says, okay, what does the human body need to fulfill Torah? You know what? He got to put on tefillin and light Shabbos candles, give him arms. He has to be able to talk and say words of prayer, give him a mouth. He has to see give him eyes. In other words, what came first? Not that the body came first and Hashem designed a Torah that can elevate and serve and use the body, but that the Torah came first and the body was designed to fit the Torah. In other words, it's a shift in how we see everything. It's not that we have a body, we have a world, and our Torah came to sort of be like a manual. It's just the opposite. We have a Torah, and because of Torah, there has to be a world to function and do the things that Torah needs done. Or, to explain another way, why do we have four worlds of Atzilus, Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya? So one way to see it is that's how Hashem created the world. Another way to see it is Hashem divided Torah into four parts: Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Said. The simple understanding, the homiletical, the interpretation, the Medrash, the deeper ideas, the secrets, the Chassidus, Kabbalah. And then Hashem had to make a world for each one. So he made a world of Atzilus. He made a world of Bria, he made a world of Yitzir, and a world of Asiyah. In other words, the worlds are formed as a reflection of Torah. So just to take back a step, the whole world is Torah bringing Shechina, bringing godliness into the world, or not just becoming the world. As you said before, the Torah, at each level, the Talmud creates the world and creates all the levels of angels and souls within it. The Mishnah creates the world of Yitzirah and creates all the souls and angels that are within it, and so forth. So in other words, it's not that the Torah is here, that the world is here, and Torah came to serve it. It's that the Torah is here, and the world came to be a tool for Torah. Very big difference how we see it. Now, that gives us two tremendous, uplifting, inspiring, or empowering thoughts. Number one is, that means the only reason I have an arm is to light Shabbos candles. The only reason I have a mouth, really, is to say words of Torah. The fact that I can also use it for something else, that's a technicality. It's not like I have a mouth. It's like saying, why did God give me a car? One way to see is, I have a car so I can do stuff, but I also got to use it for good. I got to also drive to take my kids to school. I got to give someone a ride to shul. Or Hashem gave me a car so I could serve him. He doesn't mind at the same time if I use it for my personal things, as long as those personal things fit into his master plan. As long as I'm using my health, my skills, my family, my wealth for the positive things, it's okay if I use it for things besides davening, learning, tefillin, mezuzah, kashrut, etc. Hi guys. So this is a whole different way to see Yiddishkeit. You have a home. You don't have a home because you need a place to practically live. And once you have a home, try and make the kitchen kosher and put up mezuzahs and try and have a Shabbos table Friday night. You have a home, so you can have a Shabbos table Friday night. Once you have the home, now it's also a nice place to have friends over and talk. But those things have to fit within the framework and the guidelines of Torah. Otherwise, the company gave you something to use, and you're using it for something which is contrary to the company. That's the first thing, just to keep in mind the whole perspective, and we'll see it plays out in this Tanya. Or just to further make this point, there's two worthwhile stories to share now. One is not a story, but a teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov taught, why does a person become hungry? So he once had this in the Sikha. It's a very fascinating thing. Why do you become hungry? So we think we're hungry because our body needs nutrients or whatever, the energy to function and to be alive and awake. So we're hungry. Yeah, on a simple level, that's 100% true. On a deeper level, why you're hungry? Every person, when they came down to this world, as we discussed, if you remember in the earlier chapters, is not only given, not only every single thing in the world has to be elevated, but every single person, actually fits in today's Hayom Yom as well. Today's Hayom Yom is this the message. Every person has a particular part they have to elevate. Why does somebody end up living in 3 homes or 2 homes or 4 cities? Why? Because you have things to elevate in Atlanta, you have things to elevate in Chicago, things to elevate in Wisconsin, and therefore Hashem put you there. Once you finish your job, now you go to the next place. You didn't leave there because you sort of bored at the place, it didn't work out for you. You left there because you finished your mission in that place. Now you move to the next place, hopefully for a very long time. If that's the case, why does someone get hungry? Because that particular piece of cake, that particular bread, that particular fish has a particular spark that's your responsibility to elevate. You have to make the bracha, elevate it, and use it now to have the strength to raise your family, to have guests, to do things. So by making you hungry, the soul is telling you a message, you got to go eat that spark. But your body doesn't speak soul, it only speaks body. So it sends a message to your animal soul, hey, that cake looks good, or you're hungry. And now you want it. Now, if you go and use it and elevate it for a good purpose, and you make a bracha, etc., and you bench, you know that was a purposeful, meaningful encounter, guided by Torah, to elevate that particular spark of the world. If you eat it gluttonously, or you don't make a bracha, or you don't bench, or you, whatever the case is, you take more than you should, you take someone else's piece, it wasn't done in the right way, then you know that wasn't the right way to do it. And you wasted an energy, a possibility, an opportunity. That's what it means when Mashiach comes, the earth is going to call out and say, you, what's the word, klad. I forget the word that's used in the Hayom Yom. You, how could you trample upon, it's not that, Hayom Yom is a different one. How could you trample upon me without thinking words of Torah? You walked on me. You weren't thinking words of Torah, meaning there's an opportunity that was missed. So there's a story I just heard that's really, really telling at this point. And that is that the Alter Rebbe, somebody once came to him, the Sheikhet, with a question about a particular part of the body, the lungs, the intestines. I think it was the lungs, if it was kosher or not. The Alter Rebbe looks at it and sees it's a little problematic. That's not so simple. So he tells him, he asks the guy, I need a few minutes. He starts taking out Sfarim from the shelves. He starts looking up. And meanwhile, the Sheikhet, it was the evening, he dozes off. He falls asleep. He wakes up, it's like 2 hours later, and the Alter Rebbe is still looking through this Sfarim, trying to find a way to make this lung kosher. And at the end, he finds a way. So the Sheikhet tells the Alter Rebbe, I'm sorry. It wasn't the value of this cow. I know it's a lot of meat. It's not worth taking up all your time for this. And I feel so bad that you sat here all night looking up the Shiloh for this cow. Baal Shem Tov said, I don't understand. What you didn't see was the spirit, the soul of this cow standing and begging and crying, please, hey Zalman, please don't allow me to go to waste. Please don't allow me to go to waste. The cow is begging for not to just go with a piece of meat that's not useless. Like the story of Baal Shem Tov, where he went to this river that never had someone ever since creation made a bracha on water from that river. And he went through the whole story to make a bracha somewhere. It's because these things were created for a purpose, all for Torah, and by Torah and with Torah. And that's just to give us a perspective of the interrelation between our world and Torah, that it's not sort of like a nice thing. People think, like regarding Mashiach, sometimes a person may think, I should say, that Mashiach is a very nice thing to happen. But listen, the world is also good the way it is. It's like saying to somebody who's preparing for a big banquet, and they're cooking in the kitchen, and they're shopping, and they're cooking, and they're working, and they're setting up tables, and yours are coming, and says, why do you have to have the banquet at the end? Look how much nice things happen in the kitchen the last 4 days, the last 5 days with the caterers. What do you think we're here cooking for? It's all about the banquet. Meaning, Mashiach is not some add-on thing that we have at the end of things. If things go nice, you get a cherry on your ice cream. Mashiach is the goal, is a purpose. It's a start and a finish point to get to success. And if we get it, then if not, the whole world is for what? In other words, the purpose and the whole world is not about life and world and creation. And then if Torah could be initiated and moved into it, it's also good. It's only here, only for Torah. That's why we have an arm. That's why there's Atzilus. That's why there's Bria. That's why there's here. And when we learn these chapters and we learn how the Torah is the vessel that brings Shekhinah into the world, we can understand it. That's what we're learning in these chapters. How Torah is not just a nice tool, that with Torah we can elevate something. Torah is purpose, direction, meaning all of creation is through Torah. Hashem looked into the Torah and created the world. That's what we have here. And our job is to make sure we implement it. So the point is, Torah carries Shekhinah, carries God's essence into the world. Okay. One last point to make clear before we go further is when the Alter Rebbe used the word, if you look at the tower, page 146, the top line, we're not going to go back there, but just to explain that one word, it says, Vigam Misham Nimshach HaTalmud Shelafanenu. And also from there came the Talmud that we have before us. What does it mean the Talmud we have before us? There are two Talmuds? Is there a Talmud that we have in the world of Beria, what we're talking about, and the Talmud we have here? The answer is no, it's the same exact Talmud. But the Talmud, well, how we interpret it, now it's interpreted in Beria, is a whole is a whole different interpretation. To understand that, we have to go back to a very famous incident that happened about 3,333 years ago. Moshe goes up to get the Torah. Moshe goes up to heaven and he wants to get the Torah, and the angels see what's going on. They go, Hashem, why are you giving the Torah down to the humans? They're gonna desecrate it. This is kept Chem de Genuza. It's a precious treasure that was hidden for thousands of years. Now you're gonna give it down to human beings. It's like taking the most incredible delicate laboratory machinery and give it to third graders. They're going to destroy it. Why are you taking it for that? Hashem says to Moshe, no. And so Moshe was scared. He held on to Hashem's chair. He was afraid he'll get destroyed. And Hashem says, answer them. And Moshe says, do you guys have parents? Do you guys have a Yetzer Hara? You guys get out to Mitzrayim? And they said, you're right. Okay, you take the Torah. What were the angels thinking in the first place? They didn't know this part. They didn't know that. Was Moshe came with a novel idea? They always thought they had parents until someone pointed out they always thought they had an evil inclination. And Moshe said, you guys want to steal? Well, no, it doesn't fit us. What were they thinking? The answer is they have Torah, but not the same Torah we have. Yes, it's the same words, but they interpret it at a whole other level. When you have the laws here of an ox that gores, to them, it's not the ox that gores, it's the ox that sits on the Kisei HaKaved. It's from the story of the chariot of Yechezkel. Every single incident and every single case of a talus that's being fought over with two people, the struggle is the soul struggling, meaning all the things that we have, they don't interpret it into the material. But Hashem says, but you don't understand. It's true that they were fine to have it because they were fine to live in this Torah with the spiritual level. Moshe told them, but remember, at the end of the day, the whole world was created for Torah, to bring Torah into this world. And there's one thing you guys can't do. You guys could learn Torah, but to implement it into the physical world, to make the brownie, to make the cookie, to make the table, to make your car, to make the the treadmill holy, you can't do that. Meaning you could have Torah, but could you bring it down to the world of Israel, down to the world of the lowest levels? And that they said you can't do. This is the idea that Moshe Rabbeinu was telling them, and this is the novel idea they had. Meaning, in other words, they knew that about Torah was different in the physical world, but they had Torah on their level, Torah with spiritual interpretations. That's important to know, because when we come down into the levels of the full worlds, where you have the different levels of Torah. And by the way, another side point interesting to note, if you go down, we go Atzilus is the first world, Beria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. One of the famous questions asked by many, many people and said many, many different answers, why does the Torah start with a base, not an aleph? And one of the answers, according to the Kabbalah, is because aleph represents Atzilus, world number 1. Beis represents Bria, world number 2. And Beis, the beginning of Torah, is an indication that where does our Torah begin? Our Torah begins in Bria. The world of Atzilus is out of our reach. We have the Bereshis that starts with the Beis, that's a Torah of Bria. Okay, all this was just information to help us understand the last part of chapter 52.
Where are you?
Good question. I wish I knew. Ayaka, where are you? We'll start from, because we sort of. All right, let's go back a few lines. I'll go through this quickly anyway, because it's really explaining levels. We're going back to about 2/5 of the way down at 146. There's a small dot in the middle of the line before the word Uve Hislapshus Malchus. So we said that basically the process is that we explained that each of the worlds has all 10 spheres, and as it comes down from level to level, Malchus, the Atzilus, becomes the Chachma of Beria. In other words, we said, if you remember 2 weeks ago, that in every world there is found the Kodesh HaKadosh, the Holy of Holies. Just like we have a Holy of Holies in Yerushalayim physically, from there emanates holiness and power and life, vitality to the whole world. In every world there is that Kodesh HaKadosh. And what is that? It's the Chachma, Bina, and Das, the Chabad of that world. So in Beria, what's the Holy of Holies? The Chabad. That's the soul. That's the brain. What is the Holy of Holies in Yitzirah? Same thing in Chabad. Where does it come from? Malchus, a level before. Just one more point, once we're mentioning it, it's very important to remember this theme all over Hasidus. Probably the single most used word in Hasidus is the word Malchus. Malchus is always used. Malchus always means expressing to other. They say one of the challenges artists, sometimes not really artists, but creative people have, not a good level of Malchus. A lot of times they're so creative, but they don't actualize. I have a friend of mine who is a brilliant, intelligent, creative person. He started writing his thesis about 25 years ago. He never finished it because he doesn't know how to make the sale, close it, done. He's very creative. The amazing artist is the one that can also do Malchus. Not only have creativity, but I can actually produce a painting. I can produce a book. But that's a whole nother skill. Having the ability to produce is much more than being creative, because the opposite. That means I'm closing it now. I'm done creating. I'm done being creative. And now I just got to stop. And this is the finished product. Just looking at some friend of mine who is writing about painting. He doesn't know when to stop a painting. He was showing a picture he made of a painting that he's painting and painting. And it's like, I can't even figure out the painting anymore. He doesn't know when to stop because there's no Malchus. I'm never able to finish it and I'll give it off. Malchus is the ability. It's like it says, the reason why a person needs to be married to express Malchus. Malchus can't be expressed in yourself. Malchus has to be the point where I stop and the other begins. Here's where I finish and here's where you begin. That's a marriage. A marriage means that's a good marriage is because the husband or the wife knows this is where I stop, this is where the other person begins. As long as I don't stop, you never room for the other, you can't have a healthy relationship. A relationship is that there's a point that I go until. Malchus is the ability, the king, who's able to actually have not just wealth, but lead and share and guide a country. A person that can give a good speech. You have some people that are very brilliant, but they can't give a class. They can't give a talk. They can't explain an idea because they don't know how to. They get very frustrated. I remember one person who passed away, a brilliant scholar. Rabbi Dean Steinsaltz. He had a hard time with a crowd that didn't really get it because he's brilliant. He was a genius. His knowledge of Talmud and everything was more than encyclopedic because it was also an analysis and everything. And he would get frustrated at crowds sometimes because it takes a gift of able to transmit and pass on to someone else. Malchus is that aspect of every world. Here's where Atzilus stops and Beria begins. I end, you start. Beria goes down to Malchus. Here's where I stop and you begin. It's the ability to transmit. So when we have Malchus and Chassidus, it's always falling into that category, which is why Dibur, speech, is Malchus. That's where I finish creating, feeling, and doing this. And now let me share it with you. True, what I share with you will never have full feelings. You will never, ever get how I deeply feel about something, whether it's love, anger, passion, excitement, whatever I feel, I could never explain it practically in words, but it doesn't matter. I can share it. I can say it. Without Malchus, you have the most amazing feelings, but never share it. So that's what, in every world, Malchus of that world begins. And we're going to see actually, I'll just jump ahead for a second. If you look at the top of page Ayin Daled, you have two lines in the Haggah, in the note. If you turn the page over, the top two lines there, we say a verse in Ashrei every day, a few times a day. And it's I never really appreciated it until I read this chapter in Tanya. What it means, Malchuscha, Malchus kol olamim. We usually say to Hashem, your kingship is the king of all the world. What does that mean? Malchuscha is Malchus of Atzilus. Malchus Atzilus, that brings about the Malchus of all the worlds. It's your essence. And that's what we're going to say in the next two lines now, that whatever world you're in, the beauty of Torah, as we said in the very beginning of this discussion, like water, when it flows down, the original is what comes down here. When you finally get to a person that's a 9-year-old kid learning Gemara and Yeshiva or Mishnayos or Chumash and sitting in his classroom and learning Gemara, he has there in his words, deep, deep, deep inside, the actual essence of God. Because Malchuscha, what Hashem is, essence, that's what's in this little child. When we sit and learn a Pasuk Chumash or a law in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, that's actually the essence of God being transmitted through that Torah. Because Torah is constantly putting on more garments. Like we know, if a mother hugs a child, whether she's wearing just one garment or she's wearing 4 coats in the winter, it's the same hug. You can't say, oh, you're wearing 4 garments, that's not the same hug. A hug is a hug. And if you love somebody, you put your arms around them, they don't say, but you're wearing 2 coats today, so it doesn't make a difference. The garments have not changed the essence of the Hashem's relationship with us. Okay. I'm going to go a little quick because I want to finish the chapter and we explain a lot of this outside. And when the Malchus of Atzilus expresses itself and encloses itself in Malchus de Bria, which is one world down, the next level of transmission. It's mislabeshes behechel kodesh kadosh Yetzira. Now, what's enclosed in the Chabad, in the Holy of Holies of Yetzira? That was went from Atzilus, Malchus, all the way through. Now, this Malchus of Bria went into Yetzira. What is the Chabad? What is the Holy of Holies? What is the brain of Yetzira? Yes, it came from Bria, but that came from Atzilus. That means the essence is still the essence of Atzilus, is what was coming down and transmitted all the way through in this process. Chabad Yetzira. And then when this Malchus of Yetzira comes down again through the process of Chabad and Chagas and Him all the way down to Malchus, that it comes down and creates the Ruchais. If you remember, when we spoke about Atzilus, we spoke about Bria, we called it Neshamais. If you remember, we said it creates a Neshamais of Bria. In Yetzira, we say it creates the Ruchais. The Alter Rebbe is not just using another word because it's fancy. We know our neshama is made up of 5 parts: nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, chida. And there's a lot of ways that it's explained. The 3 that are regular in our body, chaya is already a very lofty part of ourselves. Yechid doesn't even come into the body. Yechid is lofty above. It's a much greater part of it. It's a much more all-encompassing, deeper part of our identity. Not something that's expressed in words. So nefesh, ruach, and neshama refer to the 3 lowest parts, or the 3 parts of our expression, our interface with the world. What is that? Nefesh is action. That's the world of Asiya, the world of action. Oisa. Yetzira, or one level up, is Ruach. Ruach is spirit, that's feelings. Ruach is the world of feelings. And let's take the body for a second instead of jumping. In my body, my nefesh is all my action. My eating, my talking, my sleeping, my walking, my exercising, that's all Asiya, that's all nefesh. Going up into a little deeper into my identity is my feelings. My feelings, that is Ruach. And that's the world, as we said, of Bria, of Yetzira. And that is all my emotions, how I express myself emotionally. My intellect is called Beria. My Beria, that's called Neshama. So in the world of Beria, in the world we're talking the first level, there is created a level of Neshama. And we said again, makes sense, because Beria is the world of Seichel, the world of Bina. We said that that's the Bina, or the wisdom of Atzilus, rests in the world of Yetzira, Beria. And we'll say the Midas of Beria rests in the world of Yetzira. So Beria is the world of intellect, Yetzira is the world of feelings, and Asiya is the world of action. Like our souls, Neshama is intellect, Ruach is feelings, and Nefesh is action. And that's why he says here, if going back inside, and from there comes all the Ruchais, which are the level of Ruach of the souls, and the Malachim of Yetzira, and V'gami Sham Hi Mishnah Shalofnenu, and that is the world of Mishnah. Going back again, Talmud, we said, is in Beria because Talmud is intellectual. Analysis. Why? How come? What's the reason? The world of Mishnah, which is halacha, the world of just facts, halacha, that's the world of emotions. What does it mean? Hashem says, this I like, this I don't like. What makes this kosher, this animal kosher, this animal not kosher? So Hashem likes. I like him, I don't like him. And you remember we said before, liking is not really liking, it's either attraction or rejection. Hashem is attracted to this and rejects that. So that is halacha. The rabbis just say this is kosher, it's because this Hashem likes, this Hashem doesn't like. Why? It's what he likes. That's the Talmud goes deeper into the intellectual to understand what's the logic behind it, what's the reason behind it, etc. Coming down a level, next level is going to be the world of Asiya, where we live today. Shehi halachas psukos and mishachas gam keme chabad shel einsei baruch hu. Actually, bechinas chabad sheim time halachas sheim lebashim begelutzim beguf halachas lev bechinas gili beguf halachas sheim bechinas gili in eretz v'dis einsei baruch hu. And he said, but enclosed. I just read it quickly. Enclosed in this midais, in these halachas, is still the same essence, the wisdom of Atzilus and the wisdom of Beria. You just can't see it. All you see are the halachas. Like if someone's feelings, all you see is their feelings. A lot of times when you see someone's emotions, we can misinterpret it why they're feeling that way. Sometimes their emotions, and it's a very common thing with lack of communication. I see someone's upset. I upset at me. I upset at the weather in the room. I upset at something happened on the way here. You can be upset at a lot of things. A lot of times something happens just before you come into a class, and no one knows why you're upset because I didn't express the logic behind it. You just see the feelings. So in the feelings, you don't see the logic. You only see the feeling itself. The logic behind it is a little deeper. Same thing in the halacha, in the world of Yetzira, you don't see the Bria, but it's there. The reason why I'm sad, the reason why I just came in so happy is because something that you don't know yet, but that's what you're seeing right now. You just don't know what you're seeing. That is halachis. You're seeing the outcome, the final product, but you can't see what's behind it. What made me so happy? What made me so excited? And like we said before, the name of Tikkunim is a piece of Kabbalah written, 70 interpretations on the first word of the Torah Bereshis. Has 70 different interpretations what the word Bereshis means. That's the Sefer HaTikkunim. And it says there, the Shis Sfirin Mekan Nabi Yitzira. We know the 6 midos, the emotions, they nest, they live in Yitzira. So Yitzira is the world of emotion. The reason why it's brought down over there, I'm assuming, I never read that Sefer, I never read that book, but the reason why it's brought there probably is because it talks about creation, and we know the 6 days of creation correspond to the 6 emotions, and the 7th corresponds to Malchus. Shabbos is Malchus, which is the famous wedding mimer that the Rebbe said by the previous Rebbe said by the Rebbe's wedding, and we all say by our weddings. The Rebbe spoke about himself on his 25th wedding anniversary. I think it was 25th. Hashem Yudal, 1954. Yeah, 25th wedding anniversary is explaining this whole idea of correlation between a queen, between Shabbos and the Kala, the feminine, meaning it's all one. It's all one. The queen is the expression what the king can't express as she expresses it. Expresses it. Shabbos is the expression of the whole 6 days of the week coming to final production of Shabbos, and the Kala is the final production of a relationship of breaking down something into actuality. So you have so I'm assuming the reason why it talks there about the 6 spheres is because creation corresponds to the 6 days of the week of creation correspond to the 6 middays. And in general, that goes right and left. Right is always attraction, left is always rejection. Right is always love and warmth and bringing someone closer, and it's and love. And left is usually fear, hatred, or anger, the disconnect. And that's what determines, could this thing be elevated or not? What determines if something is kosher or not? Could you elevate this piece of food? If it's attractable, if it can be elevated, it's kosher. If it's more strict than it can't be, it's not kosher. That's the emotions, attraction and rejection, that guides all halacha. And now goes not the most important, but a very important line. V'hakol al pi chachma ilah da'atzilus. And this all comes and stems from the chachma ilah, the highest point. We mentioned before something called bina ilah, the higher mother in Atzilus. You also have the higher chachma, the higher father. All this comes from the original source at the very top of the chain from Atzilus. And all of the bina and all the das, all the lower levels are all included in that chachma. So chachma, which is always example is given as the yud, that little pintle, that first dot, that little seed, that includes every single thing. In the seed of a child, you could see every single thing that's going to come later by the child with the right equipment. And I suspect what the scientists know now is a fraction of what they'll find out one day. Meaning the same way they never dreamed that they'll be able to look at the seed and see all the different chromosomes and all the different, the whole string of DNA. Who would have dreamed this 100 years ago? I don't know when they discovered these things.
1954.
Thank you. You think they found the end of it already? They once thought the atom was the smallest thing. They're going to keep finding more and more out how much they don't even know and begin to know as we discover more of Hashem's wisdom in the world. And this energy, this truth, this vitality, like the very poor example of the babushka dolls, inside each one of them is the original Yehuda, the Chachma Elah. All of this, whether it's the Mishnah, whether it's the Talmud, whether how you're studying it, that all includes within it the godly spark, the Ur and Seif itself. And now we come into the last world. 4 lines in the bottom. And the same way it went down from Atzilus to Bria, from Bria to Yetzira, it also goes down to Asiya, the world which what's left. We did Talmud, we did Mishnah / Halacha, and now we're going to talk about Mikra, Chumash, Psukim, which, as you mentioned before, the mitzvah of learning Chumash is all in your mouth. You say it, whether you understand it, you feel it, doesn't matter. It's always better. But the main thing is move your lips, cha-cha-cha-cha, move your lips, and that's actually action.
Midrash is in the same level.
Midrash will be the same as Talmud.
Is it Talmud?
Midrash will be as Talmud, yeah.
Okay.
Midrash is already commentary like Talmud, explaining stuff where it's all, yeah, Midrash will be Talmud. Yeah, I'm assuming, I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming that.
Okay.
V'chein b'derech zeh, Yarda Hashchina of an Islapsha Behechel Kochi Dashim Dasiya, and this process, the Shechina continued to come down in Torah and create the next world and live in the next world and give vitality to the next world, all through the brain of Asiya, which is Chabad de Asiya. Now, the Kol Olam Gimel Olam Eselu, all of these three worlds, we're focusing on the three worlds we can relate to. Bria, Yitzir, and Asiya. Each one is made up of millions and millions of worlds and levels, meaning those are three general rules, but then each one is made up of millions and millions. The Kol Olam Gimel Olam Eselu Mischalik L'Drivos Madreges Hanigas Gamkin Olamais Pratim Umalchus that Silus Ulbeshes of Malchus Shel Kol Olam Prati. And basically what happens is this, each world we call within Atzilus, we call them worlds because they're levels, they're realities, they're concepts. Each one has millions and millions. Just to go back to the metaphor we said before. If you remember, we said before that that the reason why we have four worlds in the first place is corresponding to the four aspects of learning: Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Said. But it says is really also one opinion says that there are 70 ways to understand each pasuk, each letter and each word. 70 ways. Shivim Panim Torah. Rizal says, ready for this? There are 600,000 interpretations in each level. That means if you have four levels, Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Said, quick math, 2.4 million interpretations every word. That means even though in truth, that will take a long time to have a class on the Parsha. Even though in truth, we could break it down to four levels. Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Said, there's really millions of levels, at least 2.4 million that we know about. Not that we've learned that we know about the concept. The same thing is true about the worlds. Even though there's officially four worlds, each one through the Torah, which has all these interpretations. Remember, what creates the worlds? Torah. Torah has hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands and millions of layers creating all those sub worlds. All of that, every one of those worlds, every one of those levels, every one of those interpretations comes from Malchus, the Yetzirah. And it's the Malchus, the Yetzirah, that creates that reality. And each time the Chabad of each one of each of those worlds, that means, has also Chachma, Bina, Das, Chesed, V'Reda, Malchus. That means each of those, if you want to take, let's say, the 600,000 worlds, say the number, sounds a good number, in Yetzirah, each one of those 600,000 has 10 different processes of Chachma, Bina, Das, Chesed, V'Reda. And each one of those, the process goes the same pattern. The Chachma, Bina, Das of one level got to the Malchus of the previous level, and that Malchus will become it's like a link. It's like a chain. At the end of this one, reaches the next, and beginning of the next one. Just going back once again, just to go in order, we have that footnote that says, and now we can understand what it means, Malchuscha, Malchus K'Olamim, even more than we said in the beginning of this class. Meaning, not only is Malchuscha the Malchus of Atzilus, the Malchus, also really the Malchus of Beria, the Malchus of Yetzirah, but it's the Malchus of every one of the 2.4 million worlds plus. That means all the worlds are sub-category worlds. The Malchus of each one of those really comes from Malchus Atzilus. That means the initial insight, the essence has not changed. What's the insight, the truth, the identity in the entire process? And now to finish the last 4 or 5 lines of this chapter. And the Shechina, which is enclosed in the Holy of Holies, again, synonymous with the word brain, synonymous with the word Holy of Holies, synonymous with the word Shechina, which is found in each one of these worlds, whether it's the general world of Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiya, or the detailed world that's found in the hundreds of thousands of subworlds. All of it, each one carries within it the essence, which is the source of life. That means the source of life in each world comes from the essence and the original light of God that shines in through each level. Because everything started from one place, 10 utterances that Hashem uttered when He created the world during creation. Which that is old. Varhavai, as we said, Hashem created the word. So remember, another definition of Malchus is Dibur or Shechina. So Hashem created the world, that's Shechina. So all of creation, is what time it got down to our world, it's called, it's already after Yetzirah. So we start going already to, when we talk about Hashem created the world on 25th of Elul, it says when Hashem started creation, 25th of Elul, of what? Because Rosh Hashanah, Adam was created the first. That's 25th of Elul of Yetzirah's last final stage. That means within Yetzirah, we have millions of levels or hundreds of thousands of levels. In the last stage, in the last process, there's the 25th of Elul. That's when Hashem started creation. And that's the Shechina began the process of coming into this world. And eventually that became the first day of Rosh Hashanah, or the first day of our world of Asiya, Hagashmi, down here in this physical world. So that's the process. So that's what we're up to right now. What we have from all this is a very nice, I know it could be very clear, it's a very advanced piece of knowledge for our brains to try and understand, but it's a clear-ish picture of what we asked in the very beginning of chapter 51. We asked, how could there be Hashem in one place more than the other? The truth is the question sort of goes away now. It's not that the Hashem is more there. That's the process, that's the epicenter from there, that's the interface with the level before it. Why does it mean that the creator of Hashem has more God, more presence? It means that's the point from there that it gives life to the rest of the world. That is just like the body has a brain that is not more alive than the rest of the body, but it's the place where all power of the soul gets distributed, both as far as vitality and skills and abilities and function and instinct, etc., from the soul into that limb, comes through the brain. The same thing is true in every single world. You have a Holy of Holies. That Holy of Holies, if you want to get really technical, we can answer now understand our famous concept. It says, since the temple was destroyed, the only place you can find the Shekhinah is in the world of Torah. Meaning before that, you had Shekhinah either in Torah or in the Beis HaMikdash. Beis HaMikdash is gone, the only aspect, the connection. So when someone sits and learns Torah, you're tapping into the Holy of Holies of this world, because that's where it all comes from. Hashem's wisdom, Hashem's intellect.